Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to make things even more interesting. So previously we saw how we could download a file and we could open it up. So we're creating a CSV file on the fly. Now, wouldn't it be more interesting if we were getting this data from different data sources? And that's also possible as long as we've got that same structure of our data. So if we do have a different data source, all we need to do is structure the my data, and we can grab it via an AJAX or a fetch request and return it back into our project. So that's what we're going to do in this lesson. We're going to use a Google spreadsheet and dynamically load the Google spreadsheet data as the my data in order to download the CSV file. And this is going to be coming directly from the Google spreadsheet. As the page loads, we're going to download that object and then utilize it the same way as we did within our code. So now going over to Google, your Google account, and obviously you do need to have a Google account in order to create a spreadsheet. Let's create a brand new Google spreadsheet doc. So it's just a regular standard sheet. You've got this ability on Google, if you do have a Google account, and most people do, in order to create spreadsheets. And we can call it test project. And then we need some values. So we need name, course, rating. And so let's populate some values here. So Lawrence, JavaScript, rating, and hello. And so here we can just add in some additional content, and we'll comma separate out this content. So that gives us some content to work with, and we'll just keep this sheet called sheet 1. And of course you can add in your own default content. So in order to make your spreadsheet that you can get it as a JSON feed using Google, you can go into the file, and under file you have an option to publish to web. So go ahead and click publish to web. So you've got some options here. You can do the entire document, or you can just do the sheet. So that's up to you, whatever you want to publish. And in this case, it actually doesn't matter because we can grab the sheet, or we could just do the entire document. So in this case, I will just be doing the sheet, and you can do publish. Are you sure you want to publish it? So this gives you a published URL, which you can also take a look at and open in your browser and add it in your browser, and you see you get the content being output. But we're not going to be using that, and we're going to be using the actual sheet ID. So now that we've published it to the web, we can take the sheet ID, and every Google sheet has its own unique ID. You can see it within the URL. So if you copy this, and this is the value that we need to use. I'm going to bring this into the project because this is a variable that we need to make use of. So going into our project, and this can actually be a const because it's not going to be changing. So we can call it something like feed ID and paste in that feed ID. So this is the Google feed object ID. There's also a URL that we need to create. So let's create a URL. And this URL, it's going to be fairly long. So it's located at HTTPS and spreadsheet. Google is the domain.com, and then feeds/list. And then once we get this URL, we're going to post in the browser just to make sure that we did get the URL right. So /, and this is where we're looking for a feed ID value, so we can add that in. And that's the only thing that's going to be different from my project to your project. And then you need to specify the sheet. So we're just getting the first sheet, and then public, and values equals alt equals JSON. So alt JSON. So there's our URL, and we'll console log out the URL. So let's call this the feed. So go back into the project and refresh it, and there's our URL. So when we open that, you can see that we've got all of the contents within a JSON format of our Google spreadsheet. And you can use a website like a lint website. I think there's a few different ones. There's JSON lint, which is pretty good. And what this does is this is going to make your JSON data more readable. So you can just paste it in there, validate JSON, and it's valid JSON. But what it does is it gives, when you lint it, it structures it in a more readable format. So it's not just all a bunch of text. You can see that you do have the actual information that's contained within your spreadsheet contained here. So that's what we got to do next, is where we need to loop through it, and we need to pull out this information within an array format that's going to match the structure that we've got already within our data that we're exporting to the CSV. So you can see the way that it's structured that it has different rows. So under entry, it's got an ID, updated category, title, content. So it's got all of the content there as well. So you can do this one, but the better one to do is the GSX $. And notice that the name corresponds with the heading. So if you change this to test, and if you refresh, and if you take that and lint it again, that now that GSX is no longer going to be name, it's going to be test. So going down to here, so that's changed the title. And all of the values are contained within $T. So this is the structure of how it's returning that content. And then it has the next entry. So this is within an object format. And then the next entry, again, it's under the heading. So GSX $test. And then it's got the next row of data. And then it's got the last row of data. So each one of those columns is represented there by GSX $, and then the heading, and then all of the content that's contained within the column. So that makes it really easy for us to select that content and pull it out to utilize it within our JavaScript. So all we have to do, and I know it sounds like quite a bit, but it's not really that much, that we just need to structure the data. So make an AJAX request to get that JSON data, and then structure it within this same format. And then we're actually ready to send it into our create CSV function, and we can create a downloadable CSV. So all of that is still to come. So go ahead and create a spreadsheet that you can use as a data feed, get its ID, and then make sure, so build out the URL and make sure that you can put the URL within the browser and you're returning back a JSON representation of the content. And you can also use JSON lint in order to lint it out to take a closer look at the data. And then coming up next, we're going to restructure that data, pull it in using fetch, and then restructure it. So that's still to come.